Sure. I'm not going to say our names again. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Modern FNM at GameSwap in Mason, Ohio. Brought to you by Top Deck Productions. This round, we have some more Death Shadow. It's a really popular deck, and it's doing well, so we usually pick the top tables. And
but there are many flavors of Death Shadow. It's kind of like ice cream, you know. Pick your flavor.
What do I do not know what our other player is on. Craig Newland on Tourniquet.
I suppose that could be
he's going
taking turns.
Oh, sure.
Or but it looks more like tournament. I don't know a card with the name tournament in it.
Well, Tourniquet is something you use to stop bleeding or to amputate a limb.
Well, I'm actually very excited.
More rack.
Okay. Well,
fair enough. Interesting. So do we
think this is mono black?
Yeah, this one is just called 8 rack. I don't know.
Well, I'm
surprising amount of rack here. But as we saw round 1 that white-black rack was able to take down Jund Death Shadow, which was actually 4 colors. So we'll see if potentially mono-black rack is able to take down another 4-color Death Shadow. Might be a different combination of colors.
Yeah, I don't know what colors Ryan is on. I think typically, you know, he's usually a big Jund player, so I assume there's black, green, red in here. But
sure.
You know, that 4th color could be anything. Could be blue, could be white, could be blue or white.
It could be blue, it could be white.
It could be either of those, yeah.
Could it be colorless?
Yeah. You know, we always wanted the boat. Okay, so the players are going to draw their opening hands. I didn't see who won the dice roll, did you?
Nope. I did see 2 pairs of dice being rolled, but I did not pay attention to which it was.
Yeah, well, looks like Craig has an Urborg that he's going to toss back. Didn't want the Tuma.
Like that.
Yeah, didn't want the Tuma Yagmoth.
So, I'm assuming you're not on mono black if you're playing Urborg?
That's possible. Though it's also possible you have some sort of like gimmicky Swamp Walk creature.
Okay, sure.
Maybe a Street Wraith, I don't know, but if you had Swamp, you know, well, actually, it's true that you also mono black does play Urborg still because you're playing Mutavaults most likely.
True.
And if you're playing Mutavaults, you do want them to be able to tap her black when you have cards like Smallpox and Liliana. So even a mono black deck can play the Urborg just for the Mutavaults.
Right.
But I wonder if you know, if you'd also have some sort of gimmicky Swamp.
All right, so here we get to take a look at Ryan's hand from the Thoughtseize. He's definitely playing Jund. We got red, green, and black. 4th color yet to be known, but he does have that polluted delta, so maybe blue. Let's see what Craig decides to take here. He's going to take the Death Shadow, sure. And then back to Ryan's second turn. He opted not to fetch. Interesting.
Ooh, now Craig's Swamp here. That is a Swamp straight out of the Innistrad block. That's actually one of my favorites. It depicts a sort of a barren graveyard scene.
Oof.
It's very scary. Yeah.
I'm already spooked.
Yeah, that's one of the cards that you don't want to be playing with late at night, you know, because you can give yourself the spooks.
Okay.
You know, you wouldn't want to goldfish that in your room alone.
when you're trying it out.
Right,
yeah.
because it'll just terrify you.
What if you're playing zombies?
I don't like to play zombies by myself at night.
Okay. Can be frightening.
Yeah.
But I think the most frightening card maybe Ad Nauseam. That card is.
Oh yeah, that card is terrifying.
Spooky.
That card's a horror movie all in a piece of cardboard.
Yeah. So Ryan is gonna fetch a tapped Overgrown Tomb and then pass turn back to Craig. Oh no, I'm sorry. He traversed with the Overgrown Tomb. It looks like.
So it looks like Craig has got an Inquisition. I think Craig also has a Smallpox in hand. Maybe a little bit too early to fire it off.
Sure. No creature to sacrifice yet.
I say you take, yeah, that's what I was going to say, is take the Liliana there. You don't really care at all about the Fatal Push unless you find your Mutavaults or your Pack Rats. And we're not even sure that Craig has Mutavault or Pack Rat, though I do think the Urborg is maybe a good indication.
Of the Mutavault,
yeah, that he has the Mutavaults, but you don't care at all about that Fatal Push.
Yeah, Symmetra Man in the chat. So I say that you requested some more recent cards. Unfortunately, a lot of the modern decks haven't really picked up too many recent cards. But if you do like to see some recent cards, we do stream Standard on Wednesdays here, and that of course is the newest format.
Yep, and Standard on Wednesdays starts at 6:30. So a little earlier than Modern and Standard on Fridays. But yeah, if you want to catch some Standard, every Wednesday night here at GameSwap in Mason.
So Ryan gonna get back his Death Shadow and force the rack deck to discard a card. A turn of fate here.
Oh baby, fight and fire with fire. So Craig's gonna discard a Wrench Mind. Well, he's thinking about discarding a Wrench Mind.
I think his other card is Liliana.
Yeah, I think if you want to stick to Liliana here, that's what you want to do. So I think Wrench Mind is fine. Wrench Mind is okay in these matchups, but when your opponent has straight graveyard synergy, Wrench Mind can give your opponent the flexibility to, to discard some cards that you want to discard. So, yeah, I wonder what Craig does here.
He's gonna take Stubborn or not?
Yeah, I think he needs that Liliana to resolve.
Right, in case Ryan draws blue mana here.
Right. Oh, I guess it is. Yeah, Ryan does not have his blue, so. There's one of the downsides of playing these, these 4-color decks.
He fetched up a basic swamp with his Polluted Delta, I think?
I think it is relevant to conserve your life total some here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, that does seem maybe a little ill-advised. Though I do wonder to what extent you want to aggressively fetch for lands that you don't mind sacking to Smallpox. Because there is some number of Smallpox that Craig can cast where Ryan literally no longer has access to certain colors, so that's relevant. But he may have also just been conserving his life total, especially in this game 1 here. If you don't have too many ways to remove the Rack or Shrieking Affliction, life total is really relevant. So of course Ryan has Abrupt Decay and Goliath's Command.
Ryan is going to be able to traverse with Delirium here, so he can get a creature or any type of land. Yeah, he's going to get Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, Tarmogoyf seems like the operative play here.
Although he cannot deploy Tarmogoyf this turn, since he had to use his green mana.
Oh, is he
reconsiders? Maybe he realized he didn't have that second green.
I don't know. I think we need a judge call on that one. I saw the Tarmogoyf declared.
It went to hand.
He put it on. He put it on top of his hand. No, I think that's fine. I think Ryan might want a Death Shadow so he can cast it. Well, he can't cast it this turn.
I think he's looking at that
15 life.
He's looking at another land.
You think so? To try to get.
He's still
to try to get blue mana.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. He decides to get Verdant.
You think he gets the Watery Grave here?
I mean,
I can't imagine you want the Stomping Ground.
Yeah, I don't think he needs double red for any reason. So yeah, he's gonna
Watery
use
Grave,
his Watery Grave, and this also allows him to now play the Death Shadow this turn.
Yep. Yeah. So puts him to 12, get a 1/1 Death Shadow, and he knows his opponent is only on 1 card, so it's
Unfortunately, that 1 card
is a Liliana. Yeah. So it's gonna clean up this Death Shadow pretty nicely, but a double Liliana. That's actually bad news for Ryan because even if he is...
Was the other card Liliana?
He drew another... Yeah, I think so.
No.
Oh, no? Okay.
Definitely. The other card has quite an old border.
My eyes have deceived me.
Unless Liliana was printed in beta. I don't think that's
I know she's old. She's older than she looks, but not that old. She hides her age well. That looks like...
That might be a rack.
Yeah, that looks like a rack, and...
there's a rack.
Is that an old... Oh, blackmail. Okay.
Blackmail.
Yeah, blackmail is sort of like a duress, I think. It's very old. Not one we see too often except for in these dedicated discard decks. But I think blackmail forces your opponent to maybe reveal as many as 3 or 4 cards from their hand, and I think you get to discard 1.
Huh. Oh, here it is. Oh, so there's printed in 9th edition, which is why
so they reveal 3 cards.
Legal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting effect.
Yeah, it's definitely not the premier 1-mana discard spell, but it's never really all that bad. It's probably better than Despise.
Only takes a creature.
Despise takes a creature or a planeswalker.
Okay.
So Despise is sometimes a curveball option you see here from these rack decks that try to play 10 or more targeted discard spells. Right. But yeah, I think blackmail generally is better than Despise.
So Ryan, 3 mana here. He might just kill Liliana with a Kolaghan's Command. Nope. Reconsiders. So yeah, the goal of the 8 rack, it you basically you strip your opponent of cards from their hand with discard effects, and then the rack does damage to them because they have few cards in their hand. So it does 3 minus the number of cards in your opponent's hand. So if your opponent's at 0 cards, it does 3 damage to them every turn. Unfortunately, though, the rack here is going to get destroyed by this Maelstrom Pulse. But another one off the top.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But at this point, Ryan can very easily present a quicker clock than this rack with a threat.
You sure?
Well,
I think Ryan might be dead here, unless he draws another way to remove an artifact.
So he's taking 3 a turn. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there was the Goyf there in Ryan's hand, but that's simply not enough.
Yeah, it was not fast enough.
He would need 4 attack steps or 3.
The rack
just 3 attack steps there.
Claims another victim.
Yeah, these like we saw in round 1, these rack strategies are pretty good at fighting this Death Shadow. Definitely some good meta calls we've got around here.
Yeah, that's
we've got some meta sharks in the area.
Death Shadow, Death Shadow is a popular deck at this location, so it's nice to see some people combating it.
So what do we think Ryan's bringing in? We know that Ryan is on 4-color non-white.
Yes.
So what do we think he's got to try to fight here?
Well, he had some main deck artifact removal. We saw Maelstrom Pulse there. We saw Kolaghan's
Yeah, he's got
Command.
Abrupt Decay, Maelstrom Pulse, and Kolaghan's Command.
Any form of life gain? I don't know what he obviously doesn't want life gain since he's on Death Shadow, but if he had any of that, it would help. More artifact destruction, obviously, pretty good. But other than that, I don't know if he has too much to fight this.
Yeah, I wonder if Ryan possibly has something like a Painful Truths in the sideboard to try to
that's true.
Refill your hand. He will lose 3 life from it, but drawing 3 cards.
It will be painful.
Yeah, drawing 3 cards in that fashion though will save you a lot of life down the road against these rack decks. So that could be one, but most of Ryan's removal is going to be dead. So I think we'll see a lot of those
useless
fatal pushes coming out.
Honestly, any random stuff he has in his sideboard might be useful, like even a Grafdigger's Cage stops him from retracing Raven's Crime.
Sure, yeah.
So if he doesn't need Fatal Push, he might want to...
Yeah, like we talked about in round 1, the Graveyard Hate can also be live here, but not as live as it was round 1 when our rack player had white for Lingering Souls.
The white-black rack.
Yeah. But Ryan may also, if he has, any form of burn spells in the sideboard that aren't in the main board, those can be good for killing the Lilianas, which is crucial, but also for doing direct damage to his opponent's face, which you sometimes need to clean out the game. It can be very difficult to untap, to resolve and untap a creature in this matchup that doesn't have haste and attack with it. Get any combat phases in when your opponent has cards like Smallpox.
Sure. Something we neglected to think about too is because Ryan is on blue, he might be able to bring in some counter spells.
Yeah, though counter spells can be really tough to navigate against a heavy discard deck.
True.
So, like your negate can just get eaten up.
Right. Before you get a chance to counter the rack.
And Craig's game plan seems pretty pliable, but I wonder if he wants to do something like try to blindside Ryan here with a handful of creatures.
Sure.
Actually, a pack rat, one I mentioned earlier, pack rat can really run away with these games, especially when your opponent has
very
no
hard
removal.
to remove. Yeah.
Yeah. If Craig does something like bring in 3 or 4 pack rats, that can be just game over on turn 2. You put the pack rat in play, you pay 3 mana each turn. You get a pack rat, and by turn 5, you've got
5 pack rats.
Yeah, you've got 5 rats. You've got a pack of rats. So I'm curious to see what Craig does here. Now, interestingly, this deck that Craig is playing is much more likely to be an Ensnaring Bridge rack deck than the white one we saw earlier. The white one has better removal and has Lingering Souls to stave off creatures, but this mono black version really does need Ensnaring Bridge. The unfortunate thing is that Ensnaring Bridge is not good against Abrupt Decay and Kolaghan's Command, both of which Craig must assume his opponent is playing. He saw the Kolaghan's Command. So
it looks like, unlike our round 1 play, Ryan did not opt to be on the draw here. Took the play, and he's going to lead off with an Inquisition of Kozilek.
Yeah, again, for those of you just turning into this round, we had a bit of a discussion earlier about whether or not you want to be on the play or the draw versus these rack decks. And many players say that when you're playing against the rack, you want to be on the draw so you're up a card. I don't know the correct answer, but my intuition on that question is that it really may not help you because by the time, the parallel time that you would be at in the game, you're at the same number of cards that your opponent would have anyway. In other words, by the time your opponents finish their first turn, in either situation, whether you're on the play or the draw, you now have 8 cards, even if you were on the play. And being on the play, of course, makes your discard spells much better and makes your opponent's discard spells much worse because you have the first option to fire off your hand disruption. So it's unclear, and maybe Ryan's chosen to be on the play intentionally. Maybe he didn't think about it, but I think that it's probably still fine to be on the play, and I think Ryan knows that.
So Craig used an Inquisition to strip Ryan of a Snapcaster Mage, and Ryan is fetching up his 2nd mana, and he got a Tarmogoyf. All right. Currently thinks Craig has no answer to Tarmogoyf from what he's seen thus far.
And to address Symmetraman's question, oh, you got that?
Yeah, that was from a few minutes ago.
Okay, got it.
Okay, yeah, down goes Tarmogoyf to Smallpox. And down goes some lands to Smallpox, and down goes a card.
Yeah, so Ryan is gonna sack the blue source. I think he would rather try to resolve a Tarmogoyf over this Stubborn Denial.
Sure. Man, this rack deck really is just so taxing. It puts you in such a hard position so quick.
Sure, yeah.
Ryan did find another land off the top though, so that's good for him. It'll let him cast a Death Shadow here if he decides to go to 12. It'll only be a 1/1, but any threat. Oh, okay, he can go to 11.
Gosh, Craig's got this Raven's Crime in the yard already too. I mean, that's a big deal here. But Ryan's Death Shadow will be a 2/2, so yeah, like you said, not a terribly bad clock at this point.
Yeah, Craig again. We don't see him having an answer, and this time he's gonna need a land and another Smallpox to have him sacrifice that. He does have a land. See if he.
It looks like an Ensnaring Bridge. Was that an Ensnaring Bridge?
It was an old card. It had a white border. Could have been a Ensnaring Bridge.
If it's an Ensnaring Bridge, he certainly doesn't have the mana to cast it.
Not yet. Down goes Kolaghan's Command, the last Inquisition. So Craig with 1 card in hand, Ryan with 1 card in hand. But Ryan does have a Death Shadow.
Yeah, so what's interesting about the way that this plays out right here, a board state like this, Craig can only kill Ryan incrementally. You know, three damage at a time with this board state. And by definition, definitionally, the way that Death Shadow works, that makes almost no matter what happens, that makes Ryan's clock faster because it takes, Ryan has to sustain at least 2 more activations of Shrieking Affliction to kill Ryan. And by that time, the Death Shadow swings for 8 damage and then 11 damage, 8 damage and then 11 damage respectively, which again, definitionally kills Ryan. It's a very interesting board state.
So that is a bridge,
and that's a big deal.
So unless Ryan has a Abrupt Decay or draws a land here for Maelstrom Pulse, he is not going to be able to attack through this Ensnaring Bridge.
So Symmetraman, to answer your question, this other question, there are a number of ways to search for artifacts. I don't know if any of them quite resemble Merchant Scroll. There's obviously Tinker, Treasure Mage, Trinket Mage, Trophy Mage, cards like that.
Ryan did find the Abrupt Decay.
Whir of Invention is kind of like a Merchant Scroll, I guess. But no, I think you're right. I don't think there's a...
Yeah, there's not an exact copy of Merchant Scroll for the...
And it's certainly not called Merchant Scroll.
That's true.
Though maybe it's called Trading Post.
So interestingly, Ryan opted to play his land there instead of keeping it in hand because if he takes more damage from the rack here, he might be able to get Death Shadow big enough to just kill Craig on the next swing.
Increase his clock. So yeah, like I said, this is a very strange interaction between Shrieking Affliction and Death Shadow.
Down goes Inquisition. So Ryan will take 3 from Shrieking Affliction, go to 5.
Yep. So what Craig needs here is to drop a second rack.
No, he's just dead.
Ryan's at that's just 8.
He's got 2 fetch lands, so he can make Death Shadow into a 10/10
or sure,
whatever he wants.
Yep. So he's okay. Yeah.
So almost the exact same line we saw from our round 1 rack versus Death Shadow matchup. The Death Shadow ends up growing big enough through the rack's damage that it just kills the rack.
Yeah, it's a very neat interaction those 2 cards have. I think what ultimately matters is the rack player having 2.
Right.
You really want to have 2.
You want multiple, so you can kill your opponent before their Death Shadow gets to one-shot you, basically.
Obviously, it's important to remove the Death Shadow with cards like Smallpox, but if you can't, you definitely want to try to stick 2 of your rack effects.
Yeah.
But Ryan being able to fetch for those shocks there was a big deal. Though I'm surprised Craig didn't make Ryan show him the shocks, because
that's true.
There's no guarantee that most of these Death Shadow decks only play 4 to 5 shock lands.
Well,
and we know that Ryan had already sacrificed at least 1, the Watery Grave, early on, and then had 2 more in play. If I were Craig, I would have made Ryan show me the.
He actually didn't need them. So Ryan was at 5. If he fetched once, he went to 4, and Death Shadow became a 9/9, which is enough to kill Craig there.
Oh, was he at 9?
Yeah, he was at 9.
Even so, I would certainly make my opponent show me at least
so
one shock.
Just so you know, yeah.
I mean, well, there's no reason not to make your opponent show you the 1.
Make sure that
if they're gonna supposedly kill you, right?
Right. So we'll see. Did Craig opt for the draw on this go round? Ooh. So Ryan brought in a very narrow card that I was considering mentioned, but it's a Ceremonious Rejection. It counters a colorless spell.
Is he using that only to counter the rack?
Only hits the rack, I believe so. And Craig did opt to be on the draw here.
I suppose it could hit Transgress the Mind, right?
That's true, but I'm not sure if Craig is playing that.
Hey, you never know. Yeah, I guess, like we said earlier, I think you said this, Mario, Ceremonious Rejection certainly is not a good card here.
Right.
But Ryan has a lot of stuff to take out.
Anything that does anything.
Yeah, and given that you haven't even seen the Mutavaults yet, why would you want Fatal Push?
There's one in Craig's hand now.
Is there a Mutavault in his hand?
Yes.
Well, that could be bad news if Ryan doesn't.
Unfortunately, Ceremonious Rejection does not counter Mutavault.
No. Hey, by the way, I got a rules stumper for all you in chat, or for you too, Mario. What do you think happens when you Phantasmal Image an activated Mutavault? And I guarantee it's not what you think, unless you're one of the 10% of people who can just answer that question correctly the first time around. But yeah, it's very interesting what happens. We'll have that that for you after the match.
Yeah, we'll let you dwell on it. Symmetra Man, this is actually a fairly new card. It's from Shadows over Innistrad.
Oh,
it's Asylum Visitor. So
yes.
It's a 3/1 for 2 mana. And if a player has 0 cards in hand, then the person who owns the Asylum Visitor gets to draw an extra card at their turn and lose 1 life.
Yeah, this card is stellar. It's like a double Dark Confidant. You have the opportunity to draw at both upkeeps. So yeah, very, very cool card.
And slightly less painful than Dark Confidant.
Yeah,
it only does 1 damage.
Isn't Asylum Visitor a 3/1?
It is a 3/1, yes.
That is so dope for 2 mana, people. At 3/1, that's like Vendilion Click on steroids.
It only draws you a card if nobody has any cards in hand. So you got to build around it, but it can be powerful.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. This is the perfect deck for it.
So another thing. So I said Ceremonious Rejection was rather narrow. It is. It also counters Ensnaring Bridge though. So that's pretty important.
Oh yeah, that's relevant. Though, if I were Craig, to be completely honest, now I know we saw Ensnaring Bridge last game, but if I were Craig, I would not want Ensnaring Bridge. I don't want to tap out for 3 mana.
Just to have it blown up.
Yeah, for a threat that my opponent can kill with Abrupt Decay and Kolaghan's Command, which for certain are both cards that your opponent left in and possibly brought in additional copies of out of the sideboard. So I don't want. It seems counterintuitive, but if I were playing this matchup, I wouldn't want the Ensnaring Bridge.
Well, you're not Craig. He did
I'm not
leave
Craig.
him in.
Yeah, Craig
we see one in his hand
Craig
now.
is the pilot of the deck, so I won't.
So, unfortunately, Asylum Visitor kind of makes Smallpox a bit bad because you have to sacrifice it if you want to cast Smallpox.
True, that's true.
But Craig does have a Fatal Push that he could use to answer his Death Shadow.
Yeah, Craig's Fatal Pushes are very good here. Seems good. Seems good.
So Fatal Push on Death Shadow. Looks like we'll probably see a Stubborn Denial here. Unfortunately, Death Shadow, yeah, not yet a 4/4, Ryan. So Craig would be able to just pay 1.
Yep. Sometimes in this these Jund Death Shadow lists, it's a little bit harder to have Ferocious than in the Grixis ones.
Right.
Whereas Tassiger and Gurmag Angler always have that 4/5/5/5.
Silent Visitor, getting in there.
Yep. That's turned out to be big. I'm not sure. Ryan might not have any explicit creature removal. He might have the Kolaghan and Abrupt Decay still, but Might not have any fatal pushes or terminates or even lightning bolts.
Ryan's just going to pass the turn.
So this Silent Visitor could present a serious clock.
The ceremonious rejection riding in Ryan's hand has got to feel bad here.
Yeah, again, I know we talked about it already. It seems good for, like you mentioned, for not only just the rack but the bridge. But yeah, it can definitely be an awkward card to have in your hand.
I mean, Ryan's all the way already down to 5.
Ooh, so he's got a Street Wraith he can cycle, but that'll take him to 3,
and
which means that one hit from this Silent Visitor is lethal. So yeah, this is turning out to be
I mean, his line
tough.
here, he has Traverse, but I don't know. I don't think he has Delirium yet even. He has 3-4 lands in his graveyard in Death Shadow. Jeez.
Yeah, this is brutal.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he has any outs.
I mean,
he's got to draw.
Yeah,
we don't know if he has removal spells.
Yeah, I think you've got to cycle the Street Wraith and hope for an Abrupt Decay.
That seems. I mean, nope. I guess so.
I mean, he has no other outs.
Well, he could have just drawn his card for turn next time. He's not dead at 1. Goes to 1. Did not find it. Found another Stubborn Denial. I think that's it.
Man, the counter magic not coming up big here.
Yeah, definitely not where he wanted to be, and that's going to be it for Ryan for Game 3. So, 8-rack taking out Death Shadow yet again.
Yeah, it's tough to say. It's tough to say what kind of fault you can put on Ryan for that sideboard plan, because I do think there are definitely good reasons to bring in Ceremonious Rejection. But as you can see there, that's one of the lines of play where, I think like we talked about during the break between the games, Craig has the ability to bring in creatures,
right?
Especially since his opponent didn't see any creatures early.
They're going to bring out their removal.
Yeah, they're going to take out that removal, and Craig got there with a 2-mana 3/1. I mean, he didn't even draw any cards off it.
Yeah, that's all he needed. Yeah,
so sometimes in Modern you need a 2-mana 4/5, and sometimes a 2-mana 3/1 is just as good.
Sure. So what about our rules question? 2 people in chat seem to think that the Phantasmal Image turns into a land at the end of turn.
So I'm going to be completely honest, and everyone please forgive me, but I actually asked to judge this question, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years ago when I was playing or watching a Merfolk match. And anyway, it had a convoluted answer that was not intuitive to me, and I've forgotten the answer.
Oh, you forgot the answer.
I forgot the
wow.
answer. So
left us hanging.
But so you can all look it up.
I agree with the
chat. You can all look it up, and I will trust your judgment or your research skills. But yeah, it's a strange interaction, whatever it is, and there are many plausible ways to guess about it.
That's true.
But there's only one right answer, and it's most likely not what many of you think.
Craig is already ready for a smoke after that easy win.
Yeah. And anyway, unlike a lot of these strange rules interactions, that's actually one that could happen a lot because Merfolk plays lots of Mutavaults and lots of Phantasmal Image. So I'm the resident Merfolk player that does that. What does it do? Well, yeah, let us know. Tell people so they can find out, because I don't have the answers. That was a bold-faced lie.
Wow.
On my part.
Disrespectful.
I was planning on looking it up for you guys, but well, anyway, we'll be back in about a half hour for the next round. Before we go away, just wanted to remind everyone, check out the Patreon. I know you've probably heard me say it a few times tonight. I just became a sustaining member last week, supporting the stream personally, so it's a good way to support the guys who keep this thing running and keep you entertained on Tuesday, Wednesday, and now Friday nights.
Yep.
So if you're enjoying the stream, check out the Patreon, and we'll see you in about a half hour.